Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for joining us today for this Grad Connect session. Today's session is for our admitted international students who plan on joining us this fall. So today's session is going to cover just some last minute reminders, next steps, and we have everyone here from both our admissions office as well as a few of our current international graduate students who are here to just give some good advice on when they came to the university, when they first started, if you guys can remember. And then we'll open it up to questions first that were submitted during registration, and then any questions that were submitted in the chat. So as we go along, if you have some questions, please put those in the Q&A feature, but know that we're going to answer those at the end. Hopefully we'll address those as we go along, if those were already submitted. Keep in mind that this session is just for our admitted students who are coming in the fall. So if you do have questions about the application process or funding opportunities, we do cover those in other sessions for our applicants. So if you are an applicant, feel free to stay on and learn a few things about the university. But if you do have specific questions about applying or things like that, please join one of those sessions, because we we will not have time to cover those topics today. So I just want to introduce myself, and then we'll go through everyone and introduce themselves. So my name is Caitlin. I'm the Director of Recruitment here at the University of Alabama.
I'll go. I am Amanda Maltby, and I am the International Admissions Officer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charter Morris. I'm Director of International Student and Scholar Services, and I'm joined by several of our amazing students here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aditya Opreti. I'm a PhD student at University of Alabama in the Department of Physics and Astronomy, and my research is in particle physics.
Hello, everyone. My name is Solomon Ajasa. I'm a PhD student at the Department of Civil Engineering, and I'm from Nigeria. It's nice to be here.
I think she may be having some technical difficulties, but if she joins, we'll let her introduce herself. So I just wanted to quickly ask Charter if you had any last minute reminders. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Ario. I'm doing my master's in French language from the Department of Modern Languages and Classics. I'm from Nigeria.
Yes, thank you guys so much for joining us. This morning. Looking forward to having a great conversation. So I wanted to see, Charter, if you had any last minute reminders about the deadlines that are upcoming. I see there was already a question in the chat asking about the procedure of getting a visa. Just any last minute reminders for them.
Absolutely. So the first reminder is for any of those students who are still waiting to get their I-20 or their DS 2019, if they're applying for a J1 student visa, our deadline is this Friday. So it's coming up very soon for the fall semester. So we generally set a deadline about 1 month before the start of the semester. For the fall semester, it's a little over a month because of just the high volume of work we do for the fall semester. So July 14th is the deadline for those admitted for the fall semester. Some exceptions to that are if you're already in the US and you already have an I-20 at another school and you're transferring that I-20 or that CVIS record, of course, we accept those transfers after July 14th. That is not an issue. If you already have a valid F1 visa in your passport, and maybe because you studied previously on an F1, and so you still have a valid visa, we can work with you to get an I-20 past that deadline, since all that you need to do is to pay the CVIS fee on that. So those are the exceptions, but we do have a July 14th deadline for obtaining an I-20 for the fall semester. For those looking at spring admissions, I don't know if we have any spring admits on this, but December 8th is the deadline for that. So those are the deadlines that we have for just generally being able to get your I-20. Other things to keep in mind with dates, how early can you arrive? You can arrive 30 days prior to the report date listed on your I-20. So for the fall semester, we use August 16th as the report date for both the DS 2019s and the I-20s, which means you can enter the US up to 30 days prior, and that actually would be July 17th, I believe. So next Monday would be the earliest that anyone could possibly arrive to the US on an initial I-20 or an initial DS 2019. Someone did ask about what to do if their visa's been denied, or if maybe the next visa appointment availability date is after the start of the semester. So generally, what is the latest that you could potentially come? So let's say that you already have an I-20 or a DS 2019 for the fall semester. Our deadline for you to be able to come is August 30th. That is the last day of drop ad. If you have obtained your visa by that date and are able to join us, we can work with you as long as the department is able to get you fully registered for courses and you're able to keep up with your work. You could potentially arrive a few days later than August 30th. But if a visa has not been issued by August 30th, we have no choice but to defer. And the reason for that is we have no control over how long it might take for the embassy to process the visa. So having someone register for classes and holding a spot for them indefinitely through the semester will unfortunately set them up for failure if we don't have the visa issued by that 30th. That is the hard deadline for us for any late arrivals. So please keep in touch with us. But if the visa has not been approved by that date, we will need to work with you and the graduate school and your department to defer your admissions and to defer your I-20. The only other things that I wanted to share with you about deadlines, we do have our international orientation is all online, so you don't need to worry about making it in time to attend the orientation. In fact, you can start reviewing the orientation materials now and doing most of the work there. I don't know if I'm able to share this with the rest of the folks, but I'll share this with the hosts and panelists, and maybe you can share that link back out. But the orientation page, you can go ahead and start reviewing all that now. I think it would be actually helpful to review the information there before your arrival. Just know that you cannot complete the check-in process, which is the actual process of getting your immigration record validated, until after you have arrived to the United States. So we cannot validate your records unless you're already present in the US. So, and you'll see that very clearly in the immigration check-in section and what you need to do to complete the check-in, but it does require you to upload your I-94 record, which is a record that you will only be able to access after you have entered the United States. Once we have that record, along with the other documents we've requested, we'll be able to validate your immigration records, which will be critical for you getting things like your social security card and your driver's license. The only other things that I wanted to mention, and this is honestly related to the graduate orientation and the GTA workshop, but those typically take place before the start of classes. August 23rd is the start of classes. So, and I'll leave it to Caitlin and Amanda to share more about the details on those things. That's in the graduate school. But, you know, if you are able to make it here on time, I will meet you there. So. Oh, Caitlin, you're muted.
I have to do it at least once every event, right? So I went ahead and put in the chat the link to the International Student Orientation, like Charter said, that is, you know, mostly online. So go ahead and check that out. But then the graduate school, we also have an orientation that we highly encourage all graduate students to attend. Our orientation is optional, but we definitely encourage you to attend, to meet other graduate students, to get to know, you know, some faculty and of course the staff in the graduate school. And so that will be the weekend before classes start. I'm dropping the link in the chat for more information about that, the schedule and everything. But we sent an email out to all of our admitted students last week, I believe, to sign up for orientation. And then if you haven't already signed up, you'll continue to get an email once a week it's automated. So if you didn't get the email or it somehow missed your inbox last week, you'll probably get it again sometime this week. So be sure to register for that. Only admitted students can register for that, of course, because it is in person. But definitely reach out if you, for some reason, didn't get the email about orientation. With that, I wanted to see, Amanda, did you have any, last minute reminders as far as admissions and transcripts and things before we get started with our panel?
Yeah, so a couple things. We do send out emails pretty regularly. You should have already received maybe 1 or 2 about your official transcripts. We understand that it can be difficult to get those mailed or emailed to us. So it is perfectly acceptable for you to bring those by our office when you arrive on campus. And if you need to keep your originals of those transcripts, just let us know. We can make a copy and give you the originals back. We do need to have those by the middle of your first semester, so the start of October, or you won't be able to register for spring classes. So be sure that you have those and that you bring those with you. On what Charter talked about earlier, if you do need to defer, you'll need to reach out to me. Let's try not to do that before we know for certain that we're going to defer. So if you cannot make it by August 30th, then start reaching out to me about deferring your admission. At that point, you also need to make sure that you are not registered for any classes. A lot of times students will register and then not drop their classes. You got to be sure that you drop classes when you do that as well. And I can walk you through that process. It's not a difficult process, but just make sure that that's something that you're aware of when and if you do need to defer.
Thank you for that, guys. So I will go ahead and get started with some questions. Definitely want our current students to answer the majority of these, but some of these may be questions that are more geared towards our staff. So definitely our panelists who are current students, please jump in as you see fit to answer these. And so I'll just go ahead and get started with the first question that was submitted during registration was, what was your biggest learning curve in coming to the university as well as the United States?
I can maybe answer that. The biggest learning curve was actually adapting to the new place. It was kind of a culture shock when I initially moved here. I being a vegetarian, I'm from India originally. The food options, especially catering to vegetarians, were a bit limited. And then there was the public transport wasn't what I was used to. So mostly you had to bike. If there wasn't a bus to campus during off semesters, you had to like bike to campus or so those were the things. Those were the initial hiccups when moving into Tuscaloosa. The weather was pretty much the same. It was very hot, but I was kind of used to that. So it was, I think, to answer your question, that was the hardest part in getting adapted to the situation. And then the first semester is usually very busy. You have to get very quickly used to all the coursework and the research, and if you're a PhD student. So it's that transition that takes a while, and if you make yourself adapted to it beforehand, then that's always better.
Would you like to add, Deborah or Solomon?
Okay, yeah, sure. I think for me, one of the biggest shocks, similar to what Aditya mentioned earlier, was the first name culture thing compared to in Nigeria, where there's a very huge gap between the elder ones and the younger ones. So it was something I had to quickly learn and adapt to. And the other thing would be in terms of not experiencing the imposter syndrome, having the feeling that you are equally as good enough as every other student on campus, and that was as a result of understanding that there's equal opportunity for everyone. It's something that I was a bit surprised to witness here, and I think it's one of the learning curve for me. So when you get here, immediately you land in the United States, it's completely different. Everyone has equal opportunity. No one is swept under the carpet. Everyone can, get the same access to different things that the students that are available for students. So I think, in my opinion, yeah, that was the biggest learning curve.
For me, I would say it was the accent part, where you have to, speak up to understand what each other we're saying to each other, especially where you're among your other colleagues from, we have different international students from all over the country, all over the world, from India, Pakistan, so many. So you have to adjust to, when you're speaking the English language, you have to adjust to the accent so you can understand each other in class. And also there's something we do when you just get in as an international student called the ITAP, the ITAP class for English language. So we also learned, how to communicate with each other clearly. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, definitely. Speaking from my very thick Southern accent, I definitely feel coming here and like, wait a second, this is not the English that I'm used to. So I totally get that. So another good question. I know, Aditya, you had mentioned about biking to campus. So how did you, kind of come about learning what transportation we do offer around campus in the city, and what advice would you give to students? Would you purchase a bike? Would you wait and see, things like that?
Right. So that's a very important aspect because the transportation in the city of Tuscaloosa is pretty limited. Within the university campus during the on semester, like the spring and the fall semesters, there's a very good transportation. There's shuttle buses running all around, and also to off-campus housing, some of them at least. So if you're living off campus, try to make sure that you're living at a housing which has a bus service to campus, that unless you have your own vehicle. So there are like these shuttle buses running to campus from apartments from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Every half an hour. So that's very convenient, and usually most people use that. That is one aspect of it. During off semester, during the summer, or with the weekends, these shuttle buses do not run. So then you have to make other arrangements. Either you have to get a bike to campus if you're pretty close, or a lot of these apartments are walking distance to campus. So if you are, let's say, living at Canterbury or like Duncan or all these other places which are near the strip area, it's just walkable distance. So maybe you can choose to live over there. And then yeah, if you don't have a car, prefer to live near a grocery store. Let's say if you're living in the near Publix, if you're living on the strip area, or you can live close to Target or Aldi. It's always very helpful for us. For me, I'm living very nearby Aldi. It's an apartment called Lark, Tuscaloosa, and it's just 5 minutes from Aldi. So it's very convenient if you don't have a car and you need to go and get groceries. I would like to mention, there is one shuttle that through the city of Tuscaloosa that goes every hour, I guess, every half an hour. But the routes and timings are not very certain. Like it's not I mean, you still use it, but it's not the best. And yeah, so that's basically most of the transportation. If I'm missing something, someone else can add. But you can also rent bikes from the outdoor recreation center at UA. That was something that I did for the summer of the first year. And I think they are $15 to $20 a month if you want to rent them, if you are not buying them. So those are, I guess, the transportation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I want to, when you said that Aldi was 5 minutes, did you mean walk or drive?
Walk, yes, a 5-minute walk. Yes.
That is, I think, the difference, as well as when I say, oh, it's just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For me, that's drive. But
Yeah.
for many students, that's walk. And so be sure when you're looking at apartments and things, when they're listed, if they say, oh, it's 5 minutes to campus, 99% of the time that typically means drive. So just make sure that you're looking at the mileage of how far away that is. Yeah. So did you guys want to add anything to that about transportation and what you kind of learned when you got here? What works best for you?
I think Aditya basically, covered the most important part of it. Just like he said, getting an apartment, it's better you consider the proximity to school, proximity to other areas like the grocery stores, and yeah, basically, and most importantly, if you need to move around, I think with time, international students also get involved with, a lot of American families, and they're always willing to help you to move around. For example, whenever I want to go to church, I have people that I easily reach out to that pick me up and take me to church and bring me back home. So I don't think it would be very, very difficult for you to move around, if you get connected with people as well.
For sure. And I did want to drop a link in the chat to our off-campus housing. If you're still looking for housing, check that out. If you would like to reach out, that we have several international student organizations. Aditya, are you still the president? Or are you former president of?
Former president,
Okay.
but I'm leading the Physics and Astronomy Association, so kind of.
Yeah, so there's several organizations that can help get you connected. Those are listed on our website. But we also have previous recordings of sessions that we've done. There's one on our YouTube. I dropped it in the chat for everyone. If you'd like to go back and look, it talks about expenses and really what to expect, how much money to bring that you think you need, for deposits and things like that when you first arrive. So be sure to go back and watch that. That is very beneficial to watch. And so I did want to ask a question. Someone said, what are 3 things that you 100% would recommend bringing from your home country when you moved?
Okay, let me jump into this. I think it's quite an interesting question. For me, in all honesty, I think about 60% of your load should be food. It's very, very important. Yes. Like, if I ever get to go to Nigeria anytime soon, I'm going to bring I'm ensuring that it's about 80% of my stuff actually food items. And this is very important because, and this was one of the culture shock as well. The food here is completely different from what I'm used to. And, having to learn how to adapt to the American food, it's a bit a challenge for me. So fortunately for me, I was able to come with enough food when I was coming. And I also got, I told them to help me send food from home. Everyone cannot be able to do that, subsequently. So first thing is, it's very important you come with all kinds of foods. But it's very important as well that you check in with some of the food items that will not be able to come in through the port of entry, because of course there are some items that they won't allow into the United States. So you could check the websites to see if there's some list or possible list of food items that you might not be allowed to come into the United States with. But other than that, I think food is the most important. And secondly will be some clothing items, because when you arrive, it's going to take about a month before you get your first stipend. That is if you're on funding. If you're on full funding, so you need enough clothes to move around with, on and off campus, and no one is going to look at what you wear. It's really you wearing whatever you're comfortable in. So no one is really going to look out and say, oh, you're wearing this and no, you shouldn't be wearing that. So and I think another important thing which I believe is important, because people get mixed up in this, is money. For example, your first house rent, the first few weeks you're going to spend, it's important you have some cash on you just to be able to move around and do 1 or 2 things, because a lot of times it's difficult to have students who are equally just getting stipends to, sort some of those bills. So if you are able, I think it's good. It's very good that you have some substantial amount of money with you when you're coming. So for me, those are like my three biggest, things to come along with from my own country. Yeah.
I totally agree with Ajasa. The first thing is food. For me, I wish I had not packed more of my English clothing, my jeans, my top, my sneakers, because we have a lot of them here. So I wish I brought more of my traditional wears and maybe just few, like 6 English wears, then more of my traditional wears, because we do something like the African Cultural Day here, a lot of it. We have so many activities for that. So the advice is to bring more of your cultural wear than the English wear, because you're coming to an English country. So definitely, and there are stores that sells something very affordable. By the time you've stayed like 2-3 months, you'll be able to gather enough to afford some of them. And also for the food aspect, we have some African stores. There's an African store at Birmingham, and Birmingham is just like an hour away from here, where you can get, some African food, especially from Nigeria, Ghana, from China, Chinese food and stuff like that. So there's an African store at Montgomery, so different place, but not yet in Tuscaloosa.
Maybe I can just add a little bit. Like, in addition to what all was said, maybe you can, if you want to carry some utensils that would be required for you for cooking something that might not be available at on Amazon or some of the stores here, like a pressure cooker. Maybe like it's easier to get a pressure cooker from home rather than buying it from here, or some other kitchen essentials that you would like to get, medicines and prescriptions. If you have some commonly used medicines that you use, it's easier to bring them with you. And then I would say, if you're having glasses like me, then please get your eyewear from home, because it's very expensive over here, and you'll have to get your eye checked and all those other things. So get maybe 1 or 2 extra pairs of eye glasses.
Yes, very, very good point. Charter, I'm trying to copy the link that you shared, but it's weird, but I'm going to get it in here in just a second. It's some information about port of entry stuff, but I'll get that in the chat for everyone in a second. So another question that someone submitted was, which I think we kind of covered that, something that you packed but wish you would have waited. I know Deborah said more of the English, American type clothes opposed to your traditional wear. Is there anything that you guys would like to add, something that you packed but wish you just would have waited?
Well, talking about clothes, I think in terms of clothes that would help you get through the winter season, I think it's best you get here before you purchase those clothes. They're just going to take enough space in your bag. You really don't need them, especially Tuscaloosa doesn't get extremely cold. And for people coming in the fall semester, when you arrive here, the weather is still going to be a bit hot. So you really don't need those clothes until probably November, December, in January, basically, before you need to get some of those clothes. So I'm sure when you get here, after a while, you can visit some stores that sell very affordable clothing items and purchase some of those. So yeah, I think for me, that was probably one of the mistakes that I made when I was coming in here. So
another question that we had was, what are you involved in on campus? How did you get involved?
Maybe I can answer. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved on campus. There are a lot of clubs, a lot of international organizations representing each country and culture. And if they're flexible if you want to start a new organization as well. What I would say is be open to opportunities, talk to people, get to know other people, and the university provides several resources. There is a thing called the Get On Board Day, which happens at the beginning of each semester, so the fall and the spring. And that is a really good place to get to know a lot of clubs on campus. There are clubs for every activity that you could possibly think of. And then for the international students, there are clubs representing each country. Like there's the Indian Students Association, which organizes events like Diwali and Holi and other celebrations. So you can get involved with that. It's a good way to meet a lot of people and get some guidance. Then in my past, I've been involved with the running club at the university, the vegan club at the campus. So all these different aspects, like keep yourself open to opportunities, talk to people, go on the Get On Board Day. And that's probably the best way to get involved. And once you are involved with all these clubs, you like your research is your first priority as a PhD or a master's student, but there are these things that you can sometimes get your mind off research and just talk to people and chill out maybe.
Yeah, I think socialization is, just key beyond academics, research, education. I think it's good for, humans to socialize. If not, you just burn out over time, get quite tired. So I think that was one of the things that I tried to do. And one of the ways that I did that was, even asking questions from my fellow countrymen and women, just getting to know some of the activities that they are involved in school, and what are some of the benefits, what are things that you benefit from getting involved, what are things that you can offer as a person, to students, your fellow students as well. So it's also about what you plan on giving back to the society as much as, gaining from the society. Like, for example, I'm part of the Graduate Students Association. I'm the vice president, DEI. I'm also part of IPAC. I was formerly in Tied Together Court, and quite a number of things like that. So and one of the things that these associations, what they do is they make you more involved. They make you understand some of the cultural shocks. They make you more integrated into the system. And from there, you're able to access more opportunities, even get to have conversations even with faculty members, with administrative staff. So I believe this is a very important aspect of, the education system that we shouldn't joke with.
Sure. Amanda is having to hop off a little early for a doctor's appointment, but I did want her to quickly address, there were a few questions that have been submitted in the Q&A about funding and deferring their admission, as well as deferring if they applied during free application week. Amanda, if you would just quickly address those before you hop off.
Yeah, so to talk about funding, I know that this is a question everyone has. At this point, unfortunately, if you have not received something from the department that you're going to be funding, the likelihood of you having funding for the fall semester is very slim. So you should start looking at a couple options. If you did not use the free application week code, you can defer. If you use that code, unfortunately, part of the stipulations of being able to get a free application is that it was good for one semester. So that makes it where it's not able to be deferred. In that case, you would have to reapply for a future semester and pay the application fee. I hate that that's a thing, and I know that that is frustrating, but that was part of the stipulations of using that code. So the other thing to do if you're still looking for funding is to search our student job site. Sometimes they do post assistantship program offers there. You may not get funded in your first semester, but there may be the opportunity to get funding later on and you not have to pay after that first semester. So that's something else to consider before you decide if you're going to defer or if you can't defer, if maybe you can support part of your education, but not all of it. Those are just options, but as of now, if you have not received information on funding, you probably are not going to be funded for the fall semester. Were there any other, let me look and see if there are any other questions that I didn't address. One thing that I do see is a link to sign up for the GTA workshop. Do you happen to have that, Caitlin? If you are, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that the department has to originally sign them up, that the department does that first. I can double check, and I'm fairly certain. Are any of you GTAs that went to the GTA workshop? Do you guys remember?
I'm just going to do mine now, and I already got the mail. And I've been, signed up for it.
I was the GTA in my first 2 years.
Oh,
Long back.
did we get that answer? Because I think y'all are both talking at the same time.
Oh.
Okay. Yes, reach out to your department. If you haven't received information about that, reach out to your department because they are supposed to submit your name to get you started in that process. And so the GTA workshop is for those who are going to be teaching assistants in the fall, graduate teaching assistant. So if you are a research assistant or you're some type of assistant that's not doing teaching, you do not have to attend the GTA workshop, but you should have received information from your department about that. So definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, and if you are a teaching assistant, it is mandatory that you attend the GTA workshop. So that's a very important, I think it's 2 or 3 days. I cannot remember exactly how many. I think it's 2 days that you'll get information on how to navigate the American classroom. There are several, it's a very helpful workshop that will help you in your teaching in the future. So, all right, if there's not any other questions, I'm going to hop off.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
So I will, we only have about 15 minutes left for this session. So if you guys have any questions that have not been addressed yet, please go ahead and start sending those in the Q&A. If they are questions about funding opportunities or, deferring your admission, we're probably not going to answer those. I believe we've pretty much addressed everything that we can so far. But if there's any questions for our students who have already secured their I-20 and they've done all that process and they are coming in the fall, please go ahead and start sending those in. But I'll go ahead and ask another question to keep us rolling along. So another question is, how does the city support your lifestyle and values?
Okay, I can get started. I am generally a more outdoorsy person, and the city of Tuscaloosa does have a lot of opportunities or the places where you can go out for like running or hiking, or there are a few lakes and trails nearby. Although nearby saying you more or less need a car unless you're going to the University Riverwalk, which is also very nice. So usually I'll be going out to the Riverwalk every evening for like a 2 or 3 mile run. It's a very, very nice place, and it's usually nice weather in the evening. So that's part of it. And then, yeah, let me think about other things while you guys.
Well, I'm not really much of an outgoing person. I just want to be in a space that's comfortable and peaceful. And I think that's one of the things that Tuscaloosa offers. It's a very peaceful environment. Hardly will you get into trouble. I haven't since I got here. And in terms of, for example, my religious values and beliefs. There are quite a number of churches around where I can, worship. I think that's also something that the city offers. Well, there's not a lot of mosque, but I know some of my Muslim folks actually have, mosque, general mosque that they attend, which is not very far from the school. So I think those are also some things that it offers. So I'm sure if you check out for, other religious associations as well, I'm sure there's a provision for every student, in order to exercise their beliefs. So that's something I for sure that, Tuscaloosa has. And in terms of, having places to visit, there are quite a number of places, though mostly restaurants. Restaurants is like the big deal here. But there's a place called Bolero where you can go bowling. There are a lot of places you could go hiking, and other interesting things. But one of the things that also makes the city very interesting, like we mentioned earlier, is when you associate with people, associate with, a lot of students, get involved and know what's happening. Yeah, so that's it for me.
For sure. Did you want to add anything, Deborah?
Well, they've said it all. This is a very peaceful, city. So for me, I'm kind of an introvert. I just like staying indoor. So it's kind of peaceful. It's an environment where you can also read, and even if you don't want to go to the library, you can read in your home, and also the air, the environment is, green and healthy enough. So
For sure. So there was a question submitted in the Q&A. May need to have Charter answer that one. And I'll read it aloud for everyone. So they said, I have a bit more of a specific question. I will be coming from Canada and we do not need to do an interview to obtain the visa. They get it when they enter at the border. So they had planned to cross this weekend in order to get the visa and then return home until their move-in date later in August. They're now wondering if they should wait until after July 17th.
So I would actually, so you're not going to get a visa. You'll get an I-94 record. Typically at the border crossings, the land border crossings, for Canadians, you'll get a multi-entry paper I-94, like a physical I-94 record. An I-94 record is your arrival and departure record. For 99.9% of visitors to the United States, you get an electronic version of this that you can access online and print out. For Canadians who are going to be here for multiple entries, they often will get a paper-based card that's physically attached to their passport that they keep in the passport, and you have to pay for that at the port of entry. So you'll pay for that. So I think $6. It's not a insurmountable amount of money. If you will not be allowed to enter as an F1 prior to Monday next week. You just won't. There on the I-20, it has a date listed on their earliest arrival date, and it will say July 17th. And the port of entry officials will refuse you to enter as an F1. They may allow you to enter as a tourist, as a visitor, but you will not enter as an F1. The complication that you might run into, and this does get to specific, if you're arriving too early, is you could be rejected, or potentially you're allowed to enter, but not in the visa status that you're trying to enter on. Then there's the issue of if you're entering and then exiting again. I do want to make you aware, once you've entered in your F1 status, you need to then have your visa status validated for it to be usable for return entry. And so if you're entering and then exiting immediately, and you haven't had your records validated yet, it could complicate things when you're trying to return again, just shortly after your entry. So my recommendation is, and I know that you're going to be coming down, is just to do it all, because you'll be granted F1 status at the port of entry, whether you're flying down or driving your items down later in the month of August. And it should be a fairly smooth affair to be able to come down. So I wouldn't make a separate trip. It actually might complicate things more. That's my recommendation. So for everybody to know, once you review the orientation information there's an immigration section where we talk about, maintaining your visa status and everything else. We go over some information about what to do when you're traveling as an F1 student after you've entered the US in an F1 status. Your ability to return to the US after short trips abroad, maybe summer vacation or to visit family. And one of those things is about having, of course, a validated I-20 and one that has been signed for travel. And so that's the complication that you would get into if you entered and immediately left and then tried to re-enter on that same I-20. So I would definitely look at just trying to come in all at the same time. Long answer to a simple question. And that's usually what I'm famous for, is long answers to simple questions, but I just want to make sure you're well informed. I would just wait a little bit longer and just do that process at the port of entry when you're coming down with all your items to move here, because it should only take a few minutes, to be honest. Usually when you're going through CBP port of entry procedures, after you've gotten off your flight, you'll spend most of your time in the line, but only about 5 minutes at the actual counter with the immigration official who stamps your documents. So it goes pretty quickly and should be a pretty smooth process. Anyway.
Thanks, Trevor. Just want to remind you guys, if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and submit those in the chat, because we will be wrapping up soon. I did want to ask a question for our student panelists. When did you guys arrive? I know, we said you could arrive up to 30 days before classes started. So did you try to arrive that early, or did you have to wait until your lease started? What did that look like? And what did you do if you did arrive a little early? What did you do in the time before classes started?
Yeah, so I think I arrived on the 3rd of August, which was about 10 days before the orientation. And that was because my lease was starting from August 1. So I already had an apartment when I was moving in. So that's one of the main priority things that you should think about if you already have a lease signed, and when you moving in. So you arrive slightly after that date. In the 10 days before the orientation, we kind of got used to getting a bank account and a credit card, or not a credit card yet, but a bank account, and then other aspects like some getting used to the groceries and getting used to basically the lifestyle of Tuscaloosa, going to the department, meeting your professor, things like that. So I would say a good time is arriving 5 to 7 days before your orientation or before the start of classes. And I think to get yourself used to also it's the jet lag if you're coming from a different place. So you need a few days to get over that. So it's always better to arrive a few days early.
Also, when you're arriving early, you should also make plans to, to find a place to stay, because lease always starts maybe from August 8th or 10th here. So not on the 1st, like most apartments. So you have to look for where to scout, and that's why you have to, even from Nigeria, you can link. For example, I linked with the African Student Association, where I so my got linked with my mates here who who hosted me for 3 days before I was able to settle my accommodations and all. So it's very important you'll get linked with association even right from home. So we have the African Student Association, which involves Ghana, Nigeria, and other countries also have their association, so they can help you, adjust when you arrive here.
I just wanted to chip in something. I'm not actually directly answering the question. I think they've done justice to it. For students that probably don't have associations or you don't even know how to get along with you can send me a mail, check out the Graduate Student Association, look for Solomon or any of the executives who really would love to, assist you or help you in every possible ways. So yeah, that was what I wanted to chip in.
I guess all of us, you can send me an email if you have any questions. Would always be happy to help with this.
Yes, and I guess I forgot to mention that the three of these students here, they are some of our ambassadors. We have graduate ambassadors as well, and I'll drop those in the chat. We try to have one for each of our programs. Not all of them have a program ambassador, but definitely if you see, one of them, you can get their contact information. I'll drop the link in the chat for all of our ambassadors who are listed. But if there's someone who, if there's not someone in your program, definitely reach out. If there's someone from your home country or your home state, reaching out to them, they would be more than happy to help get you connected and get you the resources. Another good question I think we didn't really talk about, when you did fly into to Alabama, did you guys fly into Atlanta? Did you fly into Birmingham? Did you learn coming on a certain day may have been cheaper? Did you get a shuttle? Did someone pick you up? What did that process look like actually getting to Tuscaloosa?
Okay. I'm actually being careful to, answer this because my story was quite different. I actually arrived at New York, and I think that was pretty risky. I think because it's important to consider, the closest airport that is close to your school in terms of port of entry, because I had a whole time with the immigration department when I arrived. So this is something that I really didn't know before I left Nigeria. So if you have, if let's say a friend or a relative that is maybe up north or quite far from Alabama, I think it's important that you don't go directly to them. I think it's important you get someone to connect with here in Alabama. After settling down, you can decide to go on a visit, or look for a way to connect with them. But for the sake of port of entry and probably not get sent back home, because that was almost my reality, to be honest. It's important that you arrive, maybe the closest airport, Atlanta or Birmingham Shuttleworth, arrive there. And in terms of having someone to pick you up, really, people are always willing to help. Is it that if you don't have connect from an association, maybe even from your lab, you could reach out to some of the students in your lab, or reach out to you could even discuss it with your advisor. Everyone is willing to help you. So there's almost every possible way to get you down to Tuscaloosa, to get you settled down quickly. Even aside from the associations, there's also this Tuscaloosa International Friends. They are also very willing to, pick you up from the airport as well. So, and you could reach out to Mr. Chatter that, I don't have a means of transporting myself down here. I'm sure he will also be, be willing to assist. So there are so many opportunities, but please try to arrive through Atlanta or Birmingham and not go to New York like I did. Thank you.
Yeah, and just like to add, generally the flights from flights to Atlanta are much cheaper than if you're flying to Birmingham. So if the fare difference is too big, you can try to fly to Atlanta and then take one of the shuttle services that they have to Tuscaloosa. So sometimes they have this groom transportation, which is much better. There is another one, Greyhound, which I haven't had the best experience with, but that's something you can think about. There is also a train, that Amtrak, which goes once a day. So if you're arriving in time, you can, and you're able to catch it, then that's also an option. if you're arriving directly at Birmingham, it's slightly more easier. Either you can ask for a ride, or you can Uber, or you can take the groom transportation again. The groom transportation is generally the most preferred by students. So if you just look at the website, you can online reserve it. And yeah, that's my suggestion. Thanks, Chart.
No, oh, well, and I popped it in. I can't share it with everyone, but I popped a link to our airport transportation and to groom specifically. There's 2 or 3 services from the Birmingham airport, actually about 5. But the groom transportation also serves Atlanta. And so for those coming from who are flying into Atlanta, you can book a one-way trip from Atlanta to Tuscaloosa. It's about a 3 to 4 hour drive, depending, and I imagine they may be closer to 4 hours just because it's a shuttle. It's not like a car. They're not going to exceed the speed limit or anything like that. But it's a very safe transportation service. And yes, it will be probably comparatively expensive. Probably, I think it was $125 or something like that was the cost for a one-way. But if you're able to save on the cost for your flights to connect from Atlanta to Birmingham or from wherever you're flying in, if you get cheaper flights coming into Atlanta, it may more than pay for itself to take the groom transportation service. The only headache is, of course, after a very long flight, you're then getting on a 3 to 4 hour shuttle. And I know that is never a lot of fun. Tuscaloosa is a great city. We're close to a lot of things. We're not serviced by a commercial airport. So that is the one headache we have. We're always having to drive about an hour away to be able to fly anywhere. And I often, just like Aditya and others, I go to Atlanta quite often to fly just because of the cost savings sometimes. So it can be, especially for international flights, is a little bit cheaper. So
For sure. So that is going to be our last question for the day. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us. I'm going to drop our the graduate school's email in the chat. Of course, if there's any questions that weren't addressed, if there's anything we can do to assist in the meantime, want to remind everyone of the July 14th deadline. If you have not submitted all of your documents to get your I-20, be sure to get those done. Please reach out if there's anything that we can do. I just want to sum it all up. If there's one piece of advice you can give to an international student who is coming here in about a month's time, what's one piece of advice you could give?
I would just say prepare all your documents, everything in hand. Keep like a stack of all the things because there will be lots of documentation. And make a checklist of things. Tick them when you are done with that. That will be my advice.
I think you should.
Okay.
Debbie, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll say be mentally and physically prepared. You know, you're coming to a new country, so physically prepared. For now, you can walk miles to get to your department. You know, even if you use Google Map might take you to the longest route. And where it's supposed to take you like 5 minutes, you end up using 1 hour. Trust me, it has happened to me. So be prepared physically and mentally, you know, for the coursework and everything.
Also, most importantly, be ready to learn. You're going to learn a whole lot. And if you need something, please don't hesitate to speak up. You know, always ask questions, always feel comfortable to ask questions. If you ask someone and you don't get a response, move on to another person. You know, there are a lot of nice folks here. I would be very honest, a lot of nice folks that are willing to help you. So don't be scared, don't really feel hesitant to, you know, ask some of those questions. Yeah.
Charter, is there anything you want to add?
I think these are great suggestions. I will say the learning curve is quite steep. The adjustment process takes a while. One of the things that I've noticed is, a lot of people think that the culture shock happens in the first week or two. Obviously, the first week or two are the most challenging. It's a bit of a whirlwind as you get packed and move here and get settled and get registered for classes and attend all these orientations. And so much of the information is just flying over your head. Even if you're a native English speaker, you're probably adjusting your ear to the accent. I think that was kind of touched on before. So, give yourself some grace, but really the culture shock sets in a little bit later. So be prepared, that the first few weeks will be just a bit overwhelming, but then you may find yourself after about a month to 2 months really getting to the point of the real culture shock. Like it really kind of settles in when you've had a chance to take a breath and look at that and just know that it's completely normal. I think that that's the problem that I've seen most students face, is that they think that this is kind of something unique to them. And truly it isn't. I lived abroad. I lived abroad for 2 years and then moved back to the US. And I went through that culture shock going abroad, and I went through it again, reverse culture shock, as I readjusted to life in the US. And it's, even though I know these things and I have taught this and I have led orientations and sessions on this, it didn't make it any less true for me. So it's for everyone. Will have a bit of adjustment process. The thing to know is it is normal, and just give yourself grace and seek out advice or help if you need it. We're all here. This is a very large university with a lot of very caring people, and so we will be here to help you as you get through this. But anyway, roll Tide.
Well, Ty, well, thank you guys again. The recording, it will be on our YouTube page. Today's Tuesday, hopefully by the end of the week, but definitely about early next week. We'll send out an email tomorrow with links to the YouTube, but that doesn't mean the recording will be up by then. It's an automated email, so I apologize. So definitely check that YouTube page for previous recordings from sessions we've done this semester. And then of course, today's session will be up by next week. So if there's anything we can do, please reach out to us. We look forward to meeting you all in August. All right. Thank you guys.